You are listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast produced by Veteran Strategies and featuring conversations with fascinating and impactful men and women who have shaped our world, our communities, and our history. My name is Robert Vane, Principal of Veteran Strategies, and your host for our discussion. You are listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies, an Indiana-based public relations enterprise, and sponsored by Garmon Construction, Leaders and Legends LLC, the Grand Hall and Conference Center at Historic Union Station, the McGinley's Golden Ace Inn, and NFP, a national insurance broker with strong local content. Our podcast is featured on the All Indiana Podcast Network in partnership with Wish TV. You may find Leaders and Legends at allindianapodcastnetwork.com. Thinking of starting a podcast or need to host a public meeting? Let Leaders and Legends LLC be your partner as you look for new ways to communicate your message. Please contact Chris Spangle or me at leadersandlegends.net. And as always, all our podcast interviews are dedicated to the legacy and generosity of P.E. McAllister. Our featured guest today is Mike Chappell, who's been covering the Indianapolis Colts, covered them beginning in 1984. He's been in the news himself a little bit because the media room on 56th Street, where the Colts are, is now known as the Mike Chappell Media Room. I haven't done that many podcasts about the Colts and have been secretly trying to get Mr. Chappell. And how do you do things when you want to get someone important on the Leaders and Legends podcast? You call in the righty from the bullpen, Hall of Famer, previous guest, and the loveliest man I know, Bill Benner. Mike, Bill, thank you for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure. I love it.
Yeah, thanks for being here, even though you over-introduced me. The loveliest man? Come on. I mean, I'm
Hall of Famer, yes, loveliest man.
Famer, yeah.
When you're not saying get off my lawn, yeah, you are right. The loveliest man.
That's right.
I know.
And I say that a lot lately.
So we're going to have a great discussion about the Colts, their history, journalism, Indianapolis, all the above. I'm very, very grateful to have Bill join, and I'm going to turn it over to him since they've been friends for more than 40 years. Take it.
Well, you know, I had the honor of knowing Mike first from his work at the Anderson Herald Bulletin. And
it was a bulletin at the time, but
bulletin at the time, yeah. And so we knew of his quality work covering all things in Anderson back then. They still had the wigwam. They still had the three high schools.
So many stories.
Yeah. And some legendary coaches during that time. But again, we were well aware of Mike's work. But the Indianapolis Star Sports Department in 1984 was expanding, and largely expanding because of we were covering more and more. And then, of course, the Indianapolis Colts arrived on the Mayflower from Baltimore.
Literally.
Yeah. I was actually in Seattle covering a Final Four when I got the phone call that the Colts were headed Indianapolis's way, and that was certainly a seismic moment in the sports initiative for the city, which has flourished in many, many ways and still continues. But again, Mike, we knew we were getting a quality guy when you came on board, and I don't recall, was it John Banch or who made the pitch, or Bob Collins?
I don't know whether. I don't think it was Robin, because they really hadn't met you guys.
Right.
But it was a confluence of things at Anderson where it was time for me to move, and I was still there at the time in Anderson. And then, as it turned out, that's where the Colts were going to train, at Anderson University or Anderson College at the time. So I got the job, came on, and I was sort of the backup to John for so many years. And then early on, I was the backup guy, and then I did small colleges with DePaul, Wabash, and all that stuff. But it just worked out the time. You know, life's about timing, right place, right time, who you know. And so I went down there and I interviewed, and you fill out the questionnaire, and one of the questions was, you know, you're supposed to identify things when you do the written thing, and it said SEC, and I thought Southeastern Conference. What they wanted was Securities and Exchange Commission. So it directed me to sports. And then I come on and I'm just one of the young guys with a core of really, really good writers with Bill and Robin. And we could have a complete hour and a half of talking about Robin Miller.
Yep.
Somebody said they broke the mold when they made Robin, which is a good thing. You only need to have one.
We had him on the podcast. Bill was the co-host, and it was so fun. I knew of him from the Star, but got to know of him through a mutual friend. And I was like, what's it like hanging out with, Robin Miller? Because, just being an IU fan and have some racing stuff in the family. She said, it was Carol Glenn.
Yeah.
Carol goes, he will not allow you to buy lunch ever.
That's right.
True.
That's right.
And I said, like ever? And she goes, never.
Truly, truly, truly one of a kind. And again, we could spend the next 3 hours.
In the first part of my time with the Star is going on the road with Bob Collins, which was a treat.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. But then with Robin, he was the Colts columnist for a long time. So we go, and the stories that I'm amazed to this day that I survived a few of them that were truly dangerous because of Robin. But the time at the Star was just so cool because of all the, with you and David and all the other, not celebrities, but personalities that we had. And when I see where things are today with newspapers and media, it's night and day what we did as opposed to what they do now.
Well, and that's one of the things I want to talk about. And again, in my very biased point of view, I think it was the golden age of sports journalism, especially print sports journalism. We covered the entire state. We had 5 editions a night, and if somebody threw a no-hitter at the West Coast that ended at 12:55 Eastern time,
And you're sitting there waiting for the box score.
We'd get it in the paper the next morning. I mean, it was every night was an adrenaline rush. Every game was an adrenaline rush, and it was a wonderful time to be involved in print journalism. And one of the things, Mike, that has so impressed me about your career has been your ability to evolve with the times. And they have changed greatly, especially with the onset of social media.
That's a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I've often said that even with tight deadlines, back in the day, you at least had, and I wrote opinion columns, you at least had 5 or 10 minutes to draw your opinion.
Right.
Now, if somebody screws up in the first quarter, you're ripping them.
Right, immediate.
Yeah. Immediate.
And that's the bad part of it. Again, back in the day, I mean, some guys in journalism now don't know what a deadline is.
Right.
We had deadlines where one of the most, the things that stick in my mind is when the Colts played Tampa Bay in 2003.
Yes. The Tony Dungy game.
Tony Dungy's birthday down there.
Yeah.
And they're down 35. It was a Monday night or a Sunday night game. And we had deadlines like, let's say midnight. You had to have your story by midnight, and the game goes overtime. They're down 35 to 14.
Yeah.
With 5 minutes to play. So your story is done. Well, this is how you celebrate Tony Dungy's birthday by getting embarrassed and all this. And they come back and tie it. So then you throw that story away. And then they win it in overtime. And luckily back then they pushed our deadlines, but I can still remember our great guy Tom Reitman saying, guys, if your story doesn't get in 5 minutes, it won't be in the paper. and nowadays, when you're sitting there writing for Fox 59 CBS, my deadline is what I want it to be.
Yeah.
You want it in soon, but there's no hard deadline. And back in the day, and now they've changed the deadlines for the print. It's like 7 in the evening.
Yep.
I mean, serious?
Oh, yeah.
So but it's totally different. And you mentioned the social media. It's just everything's immediate. And we didn't have that immediacy for the most of the time at the Star.
You are widely known as the dean.
I don't know who gave me that.
Well, you are.
Things just stick. I don't. Yeah. Okay.
What's the difference between Dean Chappell and Dean Warmer?
Ooh, there's maybe that's where it came from.
Colts writer, but the dean of you've been here since the Mayflower.
I When they did the media room, I was just stunned because you just do what you do.
I was there for that, by the way, and it was a wonderful.
You look great in the picture.
Yeah,
all of you do.
It's a normal day, Wednesday, and we normally get Shane Steichen at 11:30. We got a note, be there at 11. No idea. So we're all sitting there waiting in our cubicles and my wife walks in the door with Matt Conti, the PR guy, and I said, "Oh Jesus, like what are we doing?" And then all of you guys, the guys from the Star, and the one thing that I've appreciated through all these years is the relationships that you build. It's just a people thing, and it's with Bill and David, again, rest in peace type of thing. But we see guys come and go, but it's the people you connect with. We get together, I don't know, twice a year, the old Star guys, whether it's at IREAs or whether it's, at a tribe game. And sometimes maybe you don't feel like going, but you go because these are your guys. And if you don't go to these, then you go to a memorial that they have when someone passes away, that's no way to. So I've enjoyed what I do. I still do it because I enjoy doing it, and I think I'm good enough at it, and somebody still pays me. That's as long as the check's clear, you've got a nice job. But I really enjoy it, and like I say, I've never really had the desire to do something else as far as covering another area, because coming up through the Star, again, I did Colts, but I did small colleges. I did high schools. I went from covering 9,000 people at an Anderson high school against a Wigwam to covering 350 people at Tech, for high school basketball. So I've enjoyed it, but it's the people, the Colts, the people I still consider friends in the Colts organization and players, coaches. But the people you work with, we just had a guy, George Brimmer, who is from Anderson, still works at Anderson, and he was covering the Colts, and they downsized him. And you just hate to see people that do it the right way and are good at it get kind of phased out. Hopefully he lands on his feet. But it's the people you deal with. We had a press conference Thursday with Lou Amarano. I'll say Lou, their new defensive coordinator. And we sit there for 30 minutes after it's over, just talking amongst us, the beat guys, the ESP, Stephen Holder and James Boyd and Joel Erickson, just shooting the ball. And, Kevin Bowen of the radio, it's the people you deal with on a daily basis. That's why I miss what we had at the Star. Whether you were a columnist like Bill, although I'm not sure you were always in there, or the writers, you were in there on Friday and Saturday nights.
Yep. Covering
high school when guys are calling in 30 high school games, and you're taking stats and all this stuff because that's what you did. You weren't above the fray. You were part of this, and that's what is missing, I think, from today's journalism.
Talk about the Mike, if you would, the evolution of the Colts. Spare the Rod Dowhauer, Ron Meyer, all the way up through the glory days of Peyton. And we hosted a Super Bowl. My gosh,
40 degrees in February.
40, yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah, it was a beautiful time. But just the evolution of that franchise. And again, we could talk for 3 or 4 hours about that.
One thing I've wondered, and you may have a better view of this, is again they come here in '84, and for probably 5 or 6 years they were the pro team. No, you were just happy to be involved. You were one of 30-some teams. And then they hit a couple of, they make the big trade for Dickerson, which put them on the map nationally. Harbaugh in '95. And we were on the field in Pittsburgh when Aaron Bailey didn't catch. Don't tell Aaron Bailey that he dropped it, because he said, no, I just didn't catch it. We thought he did, and they were going to go to the Super Bowl, and they would have beaten Dallas. They would have won a Super Bowl that year with Harbaugh, because there was something special about that team. But it didn't really come until Peyton in '98, and then things. If you remember, we always joked that Jim Irsay had to make a deal with football gods, because Peyton you had to have the first pick in the draft. Well, they go in that last game, and Harbaugh is playing well enough to beat Minnesota, but he gets just gets the snot beat out of him. So they put Kelly Holcomb in, and he's awful. Turnover, and they lose, and they get the first pick. So first you have to have the first pick, and then you have to have a guy there worthy of it. And it's the same thing happened when Peyton had the neck injuries in 2011. You're awful. And who's there waiting for you? Andrew Luck.
Right.
So, maybe that's what they're paying for now with all these quarterback issues. But one thing I've always wondered, and Bill, you're more of a city guy than I am, if Bill Polian's first two picks are not Peyton Manning and Edgerrin James, first two first-round picks, it's Ryan Leaf and Ricky Williams. I'm convinced there's a really good chance that this team has moved, is in L.A. There's not a Lucas Oil Stadium. What would the city be without the Colts? I realize I know it rubs the Pacers the wrong way, and know it does. But if you're not an NFL team, how does the city change?
Well, and you can take this all the way back. You mentioned the Pacers. You can take this all the way back to the drafting of Reggie Miller over
Yes.
Steve Alford.
Very unpopular.
And the evolution of the Pacers that led to the tearing down of Market Square Arena and the building of Conseco, now Gamebridge Fieldhouse. But Peyton, literally Lucas Oil Stadium is the house that Peyton
there's a statue in front of it.
That's right.
Not to mention the convention and tourism business.
Well,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The footprint that the team leaves or helps create, would it have been there without the Colts? I don't know. It wouldn't have been to this magnitude.
Oh, well, no, I don't think there's any question about that. And again, as much as we love the history of the Pacers, and I was the Pacers beat writer all the way back to the opening of Market Square Arena in 1974. But as much as we love the Indiana Pacers and their impact and their entree into the world of big league professional sports, it was the Colts that really solidified that, and then again led to. Let me just back up. We also had to have a place for the Colts to play.
So they built a stadium before you had any idea.
Built a stadium without a team to play in it.
Right.
The first game was the Bears and the Bills.
Right. But that's the vision that the city movers and shakers, the David Fricks and
Jim Morris
and Bill Hudnut, Bill Hudnut's impact on this city was immense.
But the building of the Hoosier Dome, the attraction of the Indianapolis Colts, which led to the attraction of NCAA Final Fours and various NCAA events.
And which, the convention center growing all along
convention
for that.
center. We built a dome stadium that was attached to a convention center.
Right.
Hello. It was perfect and so incredibly visionary.
You are listening to the Leaders and Legends podcast. Our guest today, our featured guest, is Hall of Famer Mike Chappell, beat writer and Indianapolis Colts dean. We are joined by his good, longtime friend and admirer, Bill Benner. Let me ask another question about number one draft pick quarterbacks. Jeff George. He graduated from Warren Central in 1986. I graduated from Howe in 1986. I didn't really know him, but it seemed like a phenomenal move at the time. Was it in your mind, and how did it work out?
It might have been the right thing to do, but it certainly didn't work out. They didn't gut the team, but they got rid of two of the best players with Chris Hinton and Andre Rison. So you get rid of your tackle and your wide receiver, and then they say, Jeff, go play. So I'm convinced, and this isn't. I'm not into Jeff George bashing at all, because I think the team had a lot to do with him failing by not putting people around him. Peyton Manning stepped into a great situation. Yeah, they were 3-13 his rookie year, but that offense was loaded with the Marvins and Marshall Faulk and Tarek Glenn and Marcus Pollard, on and on and on. And Andrew Luck came in with a good group. T.Y. Hilton and Kobe Fleener and Dwayne Allen. Jeff, it was almost like they set up to fail. But the team had something to do with it, but then so did Jeff. I just don't know that he was wired to be that guy, and so much was put on him. And then they bring in Eric Dickerson, or they pair him with Eric Dickerson. Eric was already here, and it was supposed to be the perfect pairing of quarterback and running back, and it just didn't work. The leadership didn't work, the coaching staff didn't work, and it was probably never going to work with Jeff here.
What was the true arrival of the Indianapolis Colts? That Halloween game?
Sure.
Yeah.
Denver?
Yeah.
Dickerson ran for, 156, and he played like one series in the third quarter.
Yeah, what year was that, Mike?
What's that?
What year was that?
87.
Okay.
88, one of the two.
88, maybe.
Yeah, it's when they had all the masks in the stands.
National television.
National television. Yeah, it was the primetime game, and they beat Denver 55-20, whatever it was, and they had 45 at the half, whatever it was, and Dickerson could have ran for 300 yards, and I think Dickerson wanted to, and Ron Meyer said, "Nah, that's enough." But that's when I think they first arrived nationally when they made the trade for Dickerson,
right?
Because he was an established star. Didn't work here, but that game where it was sort of like, hello, we're this franchise as well. But that was just sort of a supernova where it was very large and glaring, and then it went away.
Yeah.
Why didn't it work with Eric Dickerson here?
Well, he was a great player. If you've ever seen Eric Dickerson run, graceful power, unbelievable. But it just again, they didn't have the right team around him. I don't think you were ever going to get through bad times with Eric, and it didn't work. Then you've got Jeff George with all the theatrics going there with holdouts and all of this, and then Rick Venturi's the interim coach, and one of the first moves he makes, whatever year that was, 91 or whatever, they suspend Dickerson for conduct detrimental to the team. He refused to go into practice for something or whatever, and Venturi wasn't going to have it. It didn't work, and then they trade him to wherever it was, Oakland or whatever, and they trade Jeff George to Atlanta, which was sort of ironic because that was a deal that got him here in the first place. So part of this was you had Jim Irsay, who's now the owner, was the GM at the time, and I think he was still feeling his way around as a GM. All the big moves with big names that didn't work out. Fred Young cost him 2 first-round draft picks.
Oh yeah, that's right, Fred Young.
The joke
Double
was
D, Fred Double D. Young?
it took a first-round draft pick for each D in his name. So, but then finally they get it right in '98 with Bill Polian comes in, and it just takes off.
Let me ask you, you mentioned the first round or overall first round picks. We talked about Jeff George a few minutes before that, Peyton Manning. It seems now no brainer. Of course, Peyton Manning. How could you possibly choose someone else? It wasn't like that at the time. There were people who were calling for Ryan Leaf to be drafted. He subsequently had a very troubled career and a very troubled life. And I think it's one of the greatest things about Peyton Manning, that's a whole nother podcast, is the fact that he has gone out of his way to be so kind and befriending to Ryan Leaf. Anyway, at the time, was it seen as an easy decision, or was it like, oh my God, if we screw this up, then...
I think the closer they got to the draft, the more it became clear who the pick was. Now, early on, maybe it was 50-50, and this is across the league. But the more the Colts, Bill Polian and Tom Moore and Jim Moore did their research on this guy, it was obvious that whatever some quarterbacks don't have whatever it is, that's what Peyton's it. I always said that even maybe when Jeff George was 40, if you had to put him out with Peyton on just pure quarterback drills, Jeff George would have smoked him because Jeff had those great talents. But Peyton had that it factor where when the first day he came in here, he was the guy, he was the leader. And there was no question about it. Same with Andrew Luck. But Peyton just had, and I don't know what there is, maybe it's just because of the way he was raised by Archie Manning, the football royalty family. But I remember we talked to Peyton at the Combine. it wasn't nearly what it is now. There were maybe 20 of us at the Louisiana Street Bar at the Holiday Inn, and we just had him encircled by the bar. And I was one of the guys in there. I asked some questions, and no other contact with him. And then I went to his pro day in Knoxville when the Colts put him through a workout. We couldn't watch the workout, but afterwards, they're walking down the hallway with his agent Tom Condon and Mora and Pulley, and I'm waiting to talk to somebody, and Peyton looks at me and says, "How you doing, Mike?" I had never formally met the guy, ever, but he had done the research to know that, well, this is going to be the beat guy that I'm probably going to have to deal with. For some reason, that's always stuck with me, that it's not an ego thing. It's just that he took time to realize who he might deal with. And it meant something. It told me something about Peyton. But I think the closer they got to the draft, whatever that means, 2 or 3 weeks, they knew who they were going to draft. After they put him through the workout, Tom Moore said, "Who said this guy's arm is not strong enough?" So they knew. And one of the all-time lines that Peyton told, it was either Irsay or Manning or Pulliam. You know, if you take me, I'll win for you. If you don't, I'll come back and kick your butt.
You kick your butt, yeah.
Through the next 10 or 12 years. So that's pretty brazen to do. But that, and Peyton, when he met with the Colts, he's interviewing them. He's got a list of questions about, how are we going to do things? What are you going to do? And normally that's not the case. And whether it mattered or not, but at the Combine, when they met with Manning, they had a meeting with Ryan Leaf, and he blew him off. He didn't show up for the meeting, and that tells you something about a guy. If you have an audition with somebody who's going to make you, a millionaire at your profession, you show up. So, but I think the closer they got, it wasn't 50-50. They knew. You still do your work and all that, but I don't get into the fact that, well, we were still looking at tape the last week. They knew at some point within a couple of weeks before the draft who they were going to take.
I happened to be at the Anderson practice facility the first day of Peyton's practice. It was my column day. And I had voted for, who had the Michigan?
Desmond Howard.
Desmond Howard.
No, Charles Woodson.
Charles Woodson.
Charles Woodson.
I had a Heisman Trophy vote, and I had voted for Charles Woodson.
Whoops, you're the guy.
Yeah.
So you're why he didn't.
Yeah.
First defensive player to win the Heisman.
Right.
Yeah. And, I admit some Big Ten bias at the time. But I just recall how incredibly mature Peyton Manning was,
right?
Just from
day one.
From day one, exactly.
It was crazy because we're doing stories on Kelly Holcomb was the backup.
Yeah,
and the way it worked back then is they had like 7 or 10 days where guys would report and with the quarterbacks early. Well, Peyton couldn't because he was unsigned. And I always get on Peyton when he said, "I've never missed a practice." No, yeah, you missed the first 5 practices because you were unsigned.
That's right. Yeah.
But they knew from the minute Peyton signed that Kelly Holcomb was out of the picture. And Peyton started the first 200 and some games, 208 games. But all the players we talked to after Peyton's first practice, we see why he was the number 1 pick and this, that, and the other. And there was a cornerback, Carlton Gray, I think it was, pretty good player the year before. And he said, I don't know what the big deal is. The ball kind of floats. And about a month later, he was gone. They'd let him go. Now, whether that was the reason, I don't know. But from sometimes guys get it. Mm-hmm. And from the day Peyton stepped on the field, he just got it.
Let's fast forward to I happened to be in Denver, Colorado, when news came that Andrew Luck was ending his football career.
Oh, it was awful.
And it seems that the Colts have been reeling ever since over that. But that had to be. Did you have any inkling? No. Did anybody have any inkling that was coming?
It was the third preseason game with the Bears, whatever night it was, Saturday night, Sunday night, Saturday night. No, because he had gone out there that day before the game to do his little stuff on the field, and we're all watching this game that nobody cares about. And like in the third quarter, Adam Schefter puts it out there, that breaking news: Andrew Luck is retiring, and a lot of us just cussed in the press box. One, that we didn't get it, but second, that this was going to happen. And all of a sudden, no one cared about the Bears game. And to the Colts' credit, they held a press conference that night. We were at Lucas Oil for, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, getting our work done. And I still remember sitting there at the press conference, like Luck's in his probably a workout T-shirt. He wasn't, they had hoped to have a press conference like Monday or Tuesday, but that didn't work out. But we're sitting there watching Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard and Frank Reich are sitting there, and you just see their faces sort of red in the eyes and all this. And there was equal parts sadness, frustration, and anger. That team was good. That team in 2019 was going to be good. And all of a sudden you rip the quarterback out of it. And I guess when people say, well, get over it. Well, just imagine if after this season, Josh Allen goes into Buffalo and says, I've had enough. I'm done. It's you should get a couple of years where it takes you a while to get over it because it's a quarterback. Yeah. And this is a timing thing to where when you need a quarterback, there's got to be a quarterback available in the draft, free agency. They've had a few chances. Was it 2020 when was that Josh Allen? There were Justin Herbert. There were quarterbacks available, and they just, for whatever reason, didn't strike. So then you go through, the names. The Jacoby Brissett and Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan and now Anthony Richardson. I don't care how good your team is. Miami Dolphins.
Ouch.
Here we go with Dan Marino. You're always relevant. Always. Now, you don't get stuff done. One Super Bowl with Marino is still hard to imagine. But
bad drafting for year after year after year after year.
But he still made Miami relevant because he was that good. If you have the quarterback, he could. Andrew Luck didn't have a great supporting cast, defense, whatever, and he got the bejesus beat out of him. But his first 3 years are 11-5. And that third year, they get to the AFC Championship game. So that quarterback gives you a chance. Without the quarterback, you're just flailing away.
You are listening to the Leaders and Legends podcast. Our guest is Hall of Famer Mike Chappell, Indianapolis Star. We are joined by his friend and Hall of Famer Bill Benner. This Miami Dolphins fan, Robert Vane, is very happy to have both of you here in our podcast studio. The Marino games in the 80s when he would come here, then the Colts got good.
Peyton Manning's first start was against Dan Marino.
That's exactly right. And they have several of these epic games. But the defining moment, let me say it differently, the defining rivalry, Tom Brady and the Patriots, Manning and the Colts. We're kind of jumping all the way around here, but there's so many great topics.
Tom Brady's first start was against the Colts.
You covered those games. Some of them were absolutely nail-biting, magical. Are there some moments that stand out? Obviously, the AFC Championship. I was working for Mayor Ballard at the time. He said that he was in China or someplace when Belichick went for it on fourth and whatever in his own end zone. And he said the people were asking him about that. Right. Anyway, great memories of that particular rivalry.
That's one where, again, timing. Had it not been for New England being that strong top to bottom with Belichick and Brady, how many would the Colts have gotten there a few more times? Probably. You look through the years, and there's always that one team that kept another team from getting in, whether it was Pittsburgh with Oakland not getting past that, or the Baltimore Colts can't get past Oakland a few times. So that was really a great rivalry, and there's probably, if you sit and list them, there's probably 10 or 12 times, just moments. Like I said, the ties for the NFL are amazing because Peyton's first career start as a rookie is against Marino.
His idol.
Here in Indy. And then the third game of the year in 2001 was that Brady's first start when Bledsoe got blown up on the sideline. And Brady comes in and starts against the Colts the next week. And is just a guy. He throws for like 120 yards. But the Patriots just school him. because they were that much better top to bottom with Belichick. So, yeah, the 4th and 2 game, but the AFC Championship game, how rare is it when the AFC champion or the conference championship game is a bigger game than the Super Bowl? And it was. It just, they're sitting there 21-6 at halftime. And what's funny is they're just Saturday had given the team a speech during their Saturday night meetings, and it was kind of based on, this is our time. This is our time, doggone it.
And just real quick to set the stage, the Patriots had beaten the Colts multiple times in the playoffs and regular season. Seemed like they had the Colts number.
2004, they beat them, championship game, and then the next year. Right. So it was, and they had won, whatever it was, 6 out of 8, whatever the number was, they had the upper hand. And it was just time for this team to get over the hump, but to do so, to kind of step over New England to get there. And it was funny because, again, down 21-6, they come back and they win it with Marlon Jackson, another great Indy guy who's still here, great guy. He has the interception that sort of seals it, but Tom Brady gets the ball back with, 50 seconds to play. And they showed Peyton on the sidelines on the bench, sort of hunched over. It looked like he was praying. And somebody asked him, they said, well, you were praying? He said, well, I think God's got more things to do than worry about us. He said, but I sort of did say, Lord, Tom's won a lot of these games. Maybe if we could win this one or whatever. But that's what it was. It was just, again, it was anticlimactic that you go to Miami to play Chicago. I remember Tony Dungy was joking that with the Bears and the Colts should have played in Fort Wayne just for location. But that's such a great memory, and it's sort of that whole time. It sort of set the standard for what a franchise needs to be. And right now the fan base is angry, and it should be. You should have those expectations. They get back there in 2009. In South Florida again against New Orleans.
Second half kickoff.
I to this day, if Hank Baskett recovers that onside kick, the Colts win going away. But he didn't, so all of a sudden Sean Payton is a genius.
I was at that game. I was working for the mayor, and I remember he texted me at halftime and said, I'm sitting up, in the rafters. Of course, I'm a Dolphins fan in Miami watching the Colts and the Saints. And I'm sitting up there with my good buddy, Chuck O'Hara, great East Side family, and Chris Sullivan and his wife, Dina, good friends. And the mayor texts me and says, if the Colts are winning with so much time to go, get down here to me. We're flying home on the Colts plane.
Oh, jeez.
I have never rooted for a team to win so much, all of my teams combined. I wanted to be on that plane. It didn't happen. Would you consider that an upset? And here's the other question I want to ask. I was at the game with the great P.E. McAllister when they decided not to basically try to go undefeated. What was it like covering that?
We had, I don't bring up names that rankle Bill, but Bob Kravitz, the columnist at the start of the time, he just ripped them, and he should have. He and Bill Polian really went at it, but the players wanted to go for it. It was against the Jets, and they were ahead 19 to whatever it was, 10 in the third quarter, and they decided to pull the players because you don't want somebody getting hurt in a game that doesn't matter. They put in Curtis Painter, I believe it was, and it went to hell real quick.
Bill Benner, since we don't post the video, I'll just say for the audience, Bill Benner's in pain as we discuss this. But is that a lose-lose for the Colts? If you leave someone in there and they get their knee blown out, you're like, man, who cares? You got to have them there for the Super Bowl if you're 15-1.
Well, just this year with Philly and Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
Had a chance, a real good chance to break Dickerson's all-time single-season record. Needed 30 or 40 yards, and they didn't play him in the last game of the season because they were saying, we want something bigger. But the Colts thing was a little bit different. I was in favor of pulling him. I would rather have my people healthy as opposed to having Dwight Freeney have an ankle because he got hurt like in the playoff game against the Jets or someone.
Right.
And he could barely play in the Super Bowl against Breeze. They did what they could do. They shot him up the first half, and he was effective, and then not so much. So I would rather win the Super Bowl at the expense of a perfect season. But I totally understand the historical angle. Players want to go for it. They wanted to go for it, but it simply wasn't going to happen. So because what I wonder, they lose that game, and then I believe the next game's in Buffalo, the last game of the season, and it ended up being a blizzard.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So if you're going to go to an unbeaten season, are you going to play your players when it's 10 degrees and a blizzard? So it's a slippery slope. I would rather be healthy.
Yes. But Bill, let me ask you a question that it's to the both of you, but start with you. He just, Bob Kravitz and you and Bob get along just fine now.
That's right.
It was a topic at our lunch yesterday.
Right.
Go
That's
figure.
Right. That's right.
And Mike's mentioned several people in the podcast who've also been guests. How do you, as a columnist, and Mike, you as a beat writer, be objective, be critical, and still maintain relationships? How difficult is that part of journalism?
Well, it depends on who you're being critical of and how they handled that. Obviously, my most noted uproar with the subject was with the coach in Bloomington, the Hall of Famer Bob Knight, and I took him on because I thought he didn't represent the university. He won a lot of games. He was a great, great, great coach. I've always said if I had to pick one guy to win one game, especially with inferior talent, it would have been Bob Knight. But he represented other things. So it's difficult. We referred to Robin Miller. Robin had the largest set of testicles you could imagine. And Robin he'd rip somebody one day and march in undaunted into the locker room the next.
That's the thing. If you're going to rip somebody, show up the next day.
Yeah.
I've always thought and we're different because Bill's a columnist and he's more the opinion. And I try to, again, but journalism has changed. I've tried to always be fair and objective, and I'm more reporting what's going on. And the more we get into it, opinion seeps into your stories.
Right.
And I see that a lot more with what I'm doing now with CBS 4 and Fox 59. I've always found out you can be critical as long as you're fair. And again, with Robin, there were times that he lost all objectivity. I mean, and that was Robin, but that's part of Robin.
Yeah.
I've always, as long as you're fair, I think players, for the most part, as long as you're fair and you're not making it personal, they're not okay with it, but they understand it. Jim Mersley always said, and because Robin took him on a lot, when they fired a lot of coaches, he said, "Well, you should have gone higher up and fired yourself." But their whole thing is with the Colts and probably the Pacers is, as long as you're talking about us, that's a good thing. Once you lose an audience, whether it's the Pacers, IU, which will never lose an audience, or the Colts, when people quit talking about you, apathy is the worst thing to any kind of a company. But be fair, and I think most people, if you're fair, they understand that.
When I was covering the Pacers, I once referred to Rick Smits as Brick Mitts, and he didn't take that very well.
I can understand that.
And then I called Mark Jackson, who was the point guard. I called him the pout guard, but I walked into the locker room next day, and they expressed their displeasure, and we went. Speaking of the Hall of Famer, one of Mike's incredibly
honors
is to be on the Football Hall of Fame, among the Football
Selection
Hall of Fame
Committee.
Selection Committee. That has to be, and you advocate, as part of that, you advocate for the Indianapolis Colts that you think that should belong, and talk about that.
That's one where it's not a little thing because you're sort of cementing a guy's legacy.
Right.
And I've done it for 20, 25 years. And we had our meeting last week for this year, the class of 2025, and we've got Reggie Wayne and Adam Vinatieri. who we share with New England, but Vinatieri was here for 14 years, for crying out loud. But yeah, there's each market has a representative, a selector. John Banch did it, and then I took over for him. But yeah, you're lobbying, endorsing, presenting your guy on why should he be in. Now, when it's Peyton Manning, you stand up and say Peyton Manning, and you sit down. You don't. You're given like 5 or 7
Pope
minutes.
Or Armando Salguero said that about Marino or something.
Right.
I stood up and said Dan Marino, and I sat back down.
Brett Favre. And we were, a lot of what we do is confidential, but with Adam Vinatieri, the Ron Borges from the New England area really presented him, and then I sort of followed up, and I said, if he's a special teams player. I said, if this is any other player at any other position, I stand up and say Adam Vinatieri, and I sit down because his resume is that big. But every year we've got 15 players. All of them are Hall of Fame worthy, and we have to pare it down to 5 guys. And it's
How the hell can Adam Vinatieri not get in the Hall of Fame?
But this year's class, it's Eli Manning.
It's timing.
It's
a lot of times
a lot of it's timing.
right?
It's
Yeah.
Next, and with Reggie, if he doesn't make it this year, we've got Torrey Holt, great player. Next year, Larry Fitzgerald. Before long, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, Frank Gore. So but these are great players. They're all great players, and we have to decide on 5 of them. People always say, "Well, this guy should have got in." Instead, well, who do you want to take out? Well, I don't want to take anybody out. No, you get 5 guys.
Actually, I had written on my notes here, Eli, first ballot Hall of Fame, ?
And that's what a lot of it is. There should be very few guys that are just he's first ballot, because
that's a special status now.
It
Not
is.
just Hall of Fame. They'll say he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Jerry Rice type of thing. And I've always thought that as a selector, that to me a first ballot guy needs to be clean. He just needs to be, but he did this, he had this. No, these guys, again, if anybody stands up and argues for Tom Brady, you're going to say, what are you doing? We watched him play for 18 years. And with Peyton Manning, but a lot of them, though, with Edgerrin James, it took 6 or 7 years. And I always wondered, what are you guys not seeing that he did? And finally, Edgerrin got in.
Mike, changing the subject, I have to ask you about, and I've had this question a lot, especially lately, over the last year and a half, the future of the Colts and the future of the Colts ownership, and Jim Irsay.
It's a great question, and that's one of those that it's not a little awkward. It's a lot awkward because I consider him a friend. I've known him since '84, and we've not hung out, but we've worked a lot together. But it's a good question. He recovered over the last year with a major surgery. He's still fighting for his mobility. I've talked to him, and he's as bright as he's been. But at some point, will there be a transition to the daughters? And then I don't know what, and I've not looked into it. What are the financial ramifications of changing ownership of a billion dollar enterprise? So he's running the team. Chris Ballard has a lot to say, but this is Jim Irsay's team. Carly has a lot to do with it. Kalen, Casey. So it's a unique situation that at some point needs to be or will be crystallized in some form, whether he maintains ironclad ownership. It'll probably be a health issue, but I think his health is fine, other than trying to get his mobility back from the surgery. And we've had dealings with him at the Ring of Honor with Dwight Freeney, and he's in Canton for the Hall of Fame. And these 3 players have had him present them for the Hall of Fame, which is pretty amazing.
That's a testament right
Yeah.
there.
It is, because he's that guy. And I wish people would realize, and this is the friendship part, he's got his demons, but he's as genuine a person as you're ever going to find. And what he's done for the community, the city, people have seen only a small percentage of it. But no, at some point, the ownership of the team and the direction of the team is going to have to be addressed, I guess, or clarified, because I think the public, I think the public has some questions on how firm is Jim Irsay's control. Right now, I think it's pretty firm. But in a couple of years, I don't know.
May I give 2 quotes? You can tell me if you were there for them and what your response was then and or now. I'm not going to try to mimic it, but the first one is, who the hell is Mel Kiper Jr. anyway?
I was there. Bill Tobin. Yes. That's when they were going to, they drafted, was it Trent Dilfer?
Trev Alberts. And
Trev Alberts instead of Trent Dilfer. And, it was draft day. And it was who the heck? My mailman, whatever. And, but it was unbelievable. And it went on for like 2 or 3 days. And it sort of helped make Mel Kiper who he is as far as reputation. That was a great quote that it had a life for about 2 or 3 days.
And this is before social media, so you
yes,
can only imagine what it would
can you
be like
imagine
now. But do you think that Trent Dilfer didn't turn out, he won a Super Bowl, kinda, I guess, with one of the greatest defenses of all time. Who was kind of right in that exchange, and what did you think of Polian? I've had it.
It was Bill Tobin.
Bill Tobin. That's right. Forgive me, you said that.
It was a not an unexpected response from a football guy about a non-football guy telling him how to do his business. So I understood that. I thought, again, Bill Tobin was old school on steroids. He did things his way, and he believed in himself. And to have somebody on a TV set telling him how to do his job, it was just a slap in the face. And who the hell is Mel Kiper? It's one of the great. Again, it's got to really have oomph to live through the years, and that was one of them.
And he said it was Tobin said it was such disdain. Just like, it was classic to see his face. Bill, you obviously remember that. What did you think of it?
Well, I thought it was a classic put down of a national know-it-all.
Right.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me how to do my job?
Yeah.
Who the hell are you?
I actually enjoyed it. Yeah.
Second one is, and as I recall, the question was asked by your former
Tim Bragg
radio partner.
Oh, I know. This is Jim Mora.
Yeah. I'm not even going to try. I'll just
Playoffs.
say playoffs. What did you think of that?
It was. People said it was another Mora meltdown. We didn't have a lot of those here in town. We really didn't, but that was Tim Bragg. That was after the San Francisco game. This is during when Peyton was having an interception issue. He had like 11 or 12 in a 3 or 4 game span. And they went out against Frisco, and Peyton threw 4 interceptions, and maybe 1 or 2 of them were pick sixes. At least one of them was. And Mora was. The backdrop is that people were getting on Vic Fangio's defense, just ripping the defense. And the way that Mora came in, the first thing he said was, don't blame that on the defense. Don't blame that on the defense. We need to quit throwing these interceptions and all this stuff. And then Tim Bragg said, what's this do to your playoff hopes or whatever? But Mora was fit. He was ready for it. Because he's as loyal as the day is long to his coaches, and it ended up leading to him being fired, because he wouldn't fire Vic Fangio. But playoffs was such a great, and it's one of the, I saw
there's a commercial now. Jim Mora.
It's a gambling site, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Playoffs,
yeah.
but that's where. He had to play into that. He had to sort of, but it was just when things like that happen and they stick with you. But Jim, I really enjoyed Jim Mora. I really did. And it's just, it didn't, when it went bad because he and Polian were, it's one of those where they passed in the hallway, and if they said anything, it was a cuss word, but that it's just through the years. And it's funny how, like, Edgerrin James remains one of my all-time favorites.
I love Edgerrin James.
And we had a list of like 10 Edgerrin-isms. I mean, that the Benihana when we're going to go to Tokyo to play preseason. The closest I'm going to get to Japan or Tokyo is Benihana's, But and he was working out in Florida to rehab a knee or just to work out in Florida instead of being here for voluntary workouts. And he said, I only went to school for 2 years, but I know what the word voluntary means. So that's what, through the years you get these things. And, Peyton Manning going after his liquored up kicker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there were just all of these things that when you mention one, it leads to another, which leads to another. That's the personalities and relationships you come up with.
Well, this is why you guys are so good. This is why you're Hall of Famers. This leads me to my next question. And then Bill, I want you to take over till the end, and then you can ask him the 5 questions. The Bettis fumble, the Roethlisberger tackle,
on Nick Harper,
the Vander Jack miss. Is that perhaps, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, the most palpably exciting, oh my God, I can't believe this moment of your journalism career covering the Colts?
Negatively, yes. That was their best team. 05 was their best team. It just was. And they get the bye and they come out flat, and Pittsburgh, gets on top of them. But yeah, they're going in for the icing touchdown. And I think Gary Brackett put his helmet on the ball, and Nick Harper scoops it up and zagged when he should have zigged or whatever. And then Vanderjagt misses that, I don't know how long it was, 40-some yard field goal. And all you see on the sidelines, Peyton said, you could see his mouth. Mm-hmm. He missed it. Mm-hmm. And he missed it from like here to Terre Haute. I mean, it wasn't close.
Yeah.
So that's the one, because they were home. And then if you win that one, you're in the conference finals at home. And then you go to Detroit, which is, 3 or 4 hours up the road. That was the biggest. But what people forget about that season is that was the season where Tony Dungy lost his son. I'm trying to think if he was down. I don't know if he was in Tampa. I think he was in Tampa or whatever. And it took something major out of that team. It really did. When your head coach that is like a father figure to you and he loses his son, it was a gut punch that the team never completely got over. And again, that's the timing of the tragic timing of it. But that was their best team. And to see Vanderjagt miss that one, now all that would have done was tie it. It was 21-18, I think it was. But those are the highs and the lows. And when people say, well, Peyton, all the stuff he did here, they won one time. How many franchises would trade going to the Super Bowl twice, winning one, for a bunch of dry years? But that's probably the loss that sticks out. There was, losing in San Diego one year in the playoffs because of their punter was all world. That's the one that really sticks. I think that's hard to get past. The
loss to the Steelers, the saddest locker room you've been in.
Yes, because of everything. Expectation, and again, expectations should be high. That was a great team. It was a great team. And you just got behind Pittsburgh, and they were pretty good. But, the best thing, I mean, can you imagine how history might have been rewritten if Harper returns that for a touchdown? And all he had to do was sort of evade the quarterback, and there was another guy, a tight end coming up. But and that was, as it so happened, Nick Harper, a couple of nights before, Friday or Saturday night, had gotten into a domestic with his wife.
Right.
And she stabbed him in the leg. Oh. So he wasn't exactly 100%, but that loss probably is the most gut-wrenching as far as where you were and what might have occurred had you won.
You were sad, you were happy, you were sad, then you were sad.
Right.
And it just never seemed to be something a lot of Colts fans got over.
Until you win the next year.
Until you win, yeah.
And until you win, everything else is secondary. whether you're changing coaches, whether you're changing coordinators, whether you're doing this and the other, all that matters is winning. Winning covers up so many deficiencies, and like I said, if you've got that quarterback Manning and Luck and Marino and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, those guys cover things up.
Bill, take us home.
What are the 5 questions?
Well, you don't have to start the 5 questions yet.
Oh, okay.
Ask him. Since I said I was going to ask any more questions, ask him who's his favorite defensive player or the best one, because we know Manning's offense. We're just going to assume that.
Who's your favorite defensive player?
Bob Sanders.
Oh yeah, I had a 21 Virgie.
Oh man, when you talk about injuries and what if,
It's the only jersey I ever bought.
he was they called him the eraser, and he was just so good,
Yeah.
and he was so hurt. Whether he was too strong for his body, but he would walk through the locker room. We're in the locker room for our 45 minutes every day. And he walks through there, and I stopped him one time. I said, "Bob, why are you wearing shoulder pads in the locker?" And he's not. He's just built. And I ran into, he's such a quiet, to himself guy that I've tried to get him for a story for the last 3 or 4 years. And I run into him when Colts guys get in the Hall of Fame. Jim Irsay does a nice party in Canton. And for Dwight Freeney this past year, he had it, and Bob Sanders was there. And I'm sitting talking to somebody else, and Bob says, "So you're not going to say hi?" I said, "Well, I was kind of leaving you alone." But I said, "Bob, why won't you talk to me?" He said, "We're talking now." I said, No. I'm talking for a story." He said, "Why would you want to talk to me?" I said, "You're probably one of the most interesting people that people don't know that much about. And they won a Super Bowl because of Bob Sanders. And Rob Morris came back and played too. But he led that defense that year. And whether he goes Ring of Honor, I don't know, because his career was so short. Defensive Player of the Year one year, he was one that sticks in my head as, boy, that guy was. If you want to go in a bar fight or a dark alley, take Bob with you.
The here and now with the Indianapolis Colts. I don't
know.
Yeah.
They chose to stick with Chris Ballard after 8 years of 2 playoffs and 1 playoff win. 9-8 last year, almost made it. 8-9 this year. They were in it until they, as one player said, soiled their bed against the Giants. Shane Steichen's back. They changed the coordinator. All of that won't matter a bit unless Anthony Richardson is the right guy.
Yeah.
And after going into his 3rd year, we don't know. And that's not a good thing. You need to know after 3 years, after 2 years. But he's missed half the games with injuries, 17 of 34. And almost more concerning to me is he was benched 2 games because he didn't have the proper commitment to the job. I mean, that you can't avoid injuries. That's part of, but boy, how do you not have the right commitment and preparation? And that bothered me. The tap out,
yep,
and all that. So, but if he's the guy, he makes plays and he does things, and you think, man, if this guy can stay healthy, this team can do things. But you don't know, and we won't know if it works. If he's the guy, stays healthy, this can be a pretty good team. I go back to, with the quarterback, Jonathan Taylor rushes for 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns in 2020. Was it 2021, wherever it was? And they don't make the playoffs because the quarterback, Carson Wentz, doesn't make the plays when they need to. If the quarterback is that good, it's going to work. And few teams can overcome poor quarterback play. They just can't. So then this kid's only going to be 23 next year. But at some point, you can't have excuses. It can't be reasons. He either makes it or he doesn't.
Yeah,
and if he doesn't, if he's not the guy, you're looking at 2 or 3 more years of trying to find the guy.
Right.
So I wish I had a good feeling about it. I don't, but that's just because we've not seen enough.
All right, sir. We are going to wrap it up.
Okay.
With Robert's 5 questions.
All right.
Are you ready?
Like the speed round?
What was your first job?
Putting together farm equipment, grain dryers at Farm Fans in Beech Grove. That was a bitch. I mean, you come home and you got these cuts on you from the sheet metal. It was awful.
At the big giant elevators there at Sherman and Raymond?
Well, it's off of 465 by Beech Grove. It's turned in now. It's a big RV boat place. So they got rid of those damn things. They were vicious.
Your first concert?
Either Three Dog Night.
At Ball State?
No, at the fairgrounds.
Okay.
Or Neil Diamond at the fairgrounds. I'm thinking Three Dog Night.
Okay. If you could suggest any book for someone to read,
ooh,
what book might that be?
I'm a Stephen King fan.
Yeah.
So The Stand, probably my favorite is The Stand or Salem's Lot. But I won't make this too long. But when at the Star, they used to put these little things to publicize the writers, get to know.
Yeah.
And they had mine. It said favorite movies, and it was Animal House and Caddyshack. My wife, I said, you put those down on your bio that's your favorite. I said, that's who I am.
Okay, if you could witness any event in history, be there in person as it happens.
Wow.
Which event would that be?
Wow. I'm not sure I can give you on top of my head.
It could be sports or anything else.
I've never been to an Olympics. That's not on my bucket list. I make a blank on that. When I'm driving home from this, I'll think, God, why didn't you say?
Well, I'll give you a hint. I asked Governor Holcomb this question. You could witness any sporting event. He said the Thrilla in Manila. Then he asked me what would I have wanted to witness, and I said USA 4, USSR 3.
Ooh. Miracle on Ice.
Miling over Muncie Central.
There you go.
Huh?
I'd like that because I've been to Plump's last shot and talked to Bobby Plump, and that's whenever they make a movie that's a hit, not loosely, but based on what you did. I like that. Yeah.
All right. If you could have dinner with anyone living today, this is the last question. Anyone living today, 2 hours off the record, just to talk. Whom might that be?
You should have given me a heads up on this.
Oh, we like the thought process.
Wow. Politically, I'd love to sit and have dinner with Obama.
Yeah.
I just think I think he's
the most popular choice.
Is he?
I just think that, and he's a sports guy too. So you'd spend a little bit of time talking politics, and then you'd start talking basketball. And I couldn't play hoops with him, but sports wise, wow. And I've met so many guys. I've got a picture of me and Pete Rose together, which is great. Also got one of O.J. Simpson. I'll kind of leave that in the drawer. Wow.
John Wooden?
No. God, that's awful.
Bob Knight?
That'd be a one way. Oh, you say living or
living today?
That'd be okay. Living today.
Oh, living today.
Yeah.
I'd love to sit and have an open conversation with Peyton Manning.
There you go.
To where it's not calculated. I always hate the word calculated. It's a bad word, but to where he's open about things because we go way back. I'd say Peyton just because there's things that he's so guarded about how things have gone. I'll stick with that. And again, when I'm driving home, I'm going to say, what a dummy. How about these five guys?
Eli Manning, a first ballot Hall of Famer, in your opinion?
No.
Bill?
2 Super Bowls. I mean, come on.
Both against
Jim
Brady.
Plunkett's got 2 Super Bowls.
Well,
Both against, he's 2-0 against the greatest quarterback of all time.
And he stopped their unbeaten season. No, but you get past the 2 Super Bowls, and it was a very, very, very mediocre career. It's kind of like Miss Lincoln. How'd you like the play? Well, it's pretty good until a gunshot. So you can't get past that one thing, his 2 things. But
the fact that he beat Brady twice is really what puts him in the conversation, as opposed to Plunkett, who beat Theismann and Ron Jaworski.
I'll tell you, I can't tell you how the voting went. I know part of how it went, but It was the longest discussion we've had about a player was Eli Manning. It had to go 50 minutes back and forth.
Who's the next Colt who you think should get in?
Reggie.
After Reggie.
No, Vinatieri. After that, wow. We may be quiet for a while.
Luck doesn't get in?
No, the Hall of Fame, no.
No.
The question is does he get in the Ring of Honor?
No.
And do the people cheer?
Oh.
That's the thing. I mean, you can't have 30% of the stadium booing. And you know, right. The thing with Luck and him retiring, people were PO'd sort of selfishly. How can you do this to me? Yeah. How can look what we could have done with? And I'm convinced as I sit here, they would have reached a couple of Super Bowls and maybe won, and probably won one with him. He was that good, and they beat football out of him. But yeah, whether he gets a Ring of Honor, Bob Sanders Ring of Honor, but Hall of Fame, no.
I'm going to ask one favor of you. After the podcast is finished, help me get Mr. JMV on the podcast. Bill's tried. I've tried.
Why won't he come?
He's a very busy man, and I know he thinks the world of you.
That's bull. He's got a show 3 hours a day, and he probably prepares he goes on at 3. He probably prepares at 2:50.
He was my former board op at NDE.
Well, if I get him on, you got to come back and co-host B Squared.
I go on every Thursday with him. I enjoy it because he's got he comes through the South Side Beach Grove. He's always going through. He's talking about Beach Grove and all that. So
he really is brilliant at what he does. And we had Mark Patrick on the podcast, and they used to be on together. And you could tell that JMV both learned and then cut his own swath.
Yeah. Mark Patrick, one of the all-time great interviews was with he and Bill Polian with Jay Moore.
Yeah, that's right.
32 minutes of golden, and I've got it on a disc, and it says "Do not erase disc." It's great stuff. You sir are a madman. It's great quotes.
You have been listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies, an Indiana-based public relations enterprise. As always, all our podcast interviews are dedicated to the legacy and generosity of P.E. McAllister, who was the chairman of the Capital Improvement Board when the Colts came here in 1984. Our guest today, Mike Chappell, Hall of Famer, universally loved,
respected.
Keep going, Bill.
That's enough. That's enough. Don't pile
diligent. Just a guy
grinder
who personified sports journalism and who has evolved through the changing world of Sports Illustrated in a very high, respected manner.
And you just heard the voice of our co-host for today, Hall of Famer Bill Benner. Bill, thank you for coming down here for it. I had never met you before, Mr. Chappell.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I hope you had fun.
Edit out all the bad stuff. Make it sound like we're semi-intelligent.
Thank you very much for listening to Leaders and Legends, brought to you by Veteran Strategies Incorporated. If you want to contact us about this program or our menu of public relations services, please send us an email at robert@veteranstrategies.com. That's robert@veteranstrategies.com.